Okay, welcome everybody to my series, the Let's Code series. I'll be doing two programming languages in this series. One will be C, and the other will be Java. Okay, today we're going to be starting off with C, and we'll be doing the Hello World program, which is basically the infamous program that you should always start out with, I guess. Not always, tradition, I guess, to start out with this program that just prints hello world to the terminal. Now I'm going to type this up real quick and then I'll explain exactly how it works, and we'll run the program and see exactly what it does. Alright, so start out with our first line of code. We have the include standard.io.h, which is a header file which will give us some predetermined functions, that will let us do things like print words to the terminal, read from the terminal, print stuff to a file, read from a file, that sort of thing. Now here, the second line, we see int main void. What that is we call the main function in C, and that is kind of like the entry point to the program. When the program gets executed, it'll execute all the code within, starting from here, ending with here. Starting from here, ending with here, which in this program will be these two lines of code here. Now to start out, we have the printf function. Now what this function does is it just lets you print to the terminal. When I say the terminal, most of the programs that you start out with in C aren't going to have a nice GUI system, which is the graphical user interface like we use the computer every day. It's going to print out to this. This terminal here. Just let me get to where I have this saved at. All I'm doing here is just getting to the directory where I have all my, where I'm going to be doing all of these programs at. Let's go to C. Okay. Now, the printf function takes in lots of parameters. Parameters are everything that goes in between the two parentheses. This is one parameter, which we call a string literal. Okay. Now, we have printf, we put a quote and a quote, and inside the quote, we can just put some words, some characters, and then the printf will print all those characters, exactly how I typed them, onto the terminal. Now, an exception to this is this funny looking character called the /n character, which is a return character. Now what that does is once this is done printing out, it'll skip to the next line. I will run the program twice, one without /n and one with /n, just to show you what the difference is. And return 0 will just return a value of 0. We'll get more into returning things when we deal with functions. Alright, so let's run this thing. In this series, I'm going to be using the GCC compiler, so if you've programmed before and have never used the GCC compiler, you'll get some insight on how we use the GCC compiler. Now, GCC is just the name of the compiler. -O is an option that lets you specify the file output name, which is namely hello world I'm going to be using, and then you have to give it the source file. Now it's important to have the source file end with .c. That's the file extension for all C source files. Okay? Now why do we even have to compile? Why can't we just run a program like this? Well, the computer doesn't understand what printf is. Okay? It doesn't understand all these words that we just typed. So what we have to do is use another program which we call a compiler, that will basically read all of this code, source code, compile it, and turn it into machine readable code that we can then execute. Okay, that sounds a little confusing, but we'll talk about it more later. Let's hit enter. Okay. And now, as you can see, hello world is the program that we just made. Okay? So let's run the program in the terminal. And look at what we have there. Hello world. Yes, yes, hello world. Alright, so that's with the /n. I'm going to take off the /n just so you can see the difference. A lot of people get confused about this at the very start. So every time we make a change, we have to recompile it. Okay, recompiled it. Let's run it again. Now you can see here that hello world is kind of jumbled up with this because I didn't have the /n in there. It did not skip to the next line. Okay, and that's it for episode 1. Stay tuned for episode 2.